Hello everybody, I'm Elvira Kalmár and you are watching HR Fest Online. Today we're going to talk about how did the role of HR change due to COVID and the quarantine situation. And my partner in crime, conversation partner, is Perry Timms from the UK. Hi Perry.
Hi Elvira, good to be with you again.
Thank you very much. You're my good dear friend from a long time ago, and I'm just super happy that we can talk about this and sort of from an international perspective. What do you see, Perry? How did the role of HR change in the last 3-4 months?
I think as you and I have known for a long time, organizations have struggled to capitalize on great HR and appreciate great HR. It's been a background function, but now with COVID-19, it was thrust into the spotlight quite overnight. And what I've seen from talking to HR colleagues, again across the world, but mainly in the UK, is that the chief executive and the board have turned to HR and said, we have to quarantine. What do we do? And they had no game plan. And HR had to get itself into positions of understanding, firstly, safety for people. Secondly, people that were reporting as positive testing, they had to work out things like isolation, they had to work out things like contact, and then they had to work around legal terms like furlough and how to deal with government schemes and how to keep business going and how to keep people connected, how to have communication channels and adjust a huge percentage of their workforce to either be sat in home on furlough because the work couldn't be done, or working from home and homeschooling and with technology and with new systems and new things to do. So I think HR could have buckled under that pressure because it was such a demand. What I've seen is the opposite. HR has put in an extraordinary shift and really, really shown that when it matters, looking after people is exactly what it does.
And I fully agree with you. I mean, if I look around in Hungary, due to HR Fest Online, for example, we have seen many videos how different companies handle the situation differently, but sort of united in a way that HR really stood up and could shine its potential also, which I think, as you also said, for many, many years, there was more of a struggle how HR can position itself to be a strategic partner, a function that sits at the board table and can make their voice heard as well. Yeah. So there's not one company I could tell you that they kind of haven't made that change.
Completely.
What I think is really interesting right now is, of course, it's a great opportunity, and of course, this was a crisis, and we had to live up to it. But kind of a question is, how can we utilize this sort of new role and new position, and how can not just HR, but the companies and people benefit from it? And just for that, maybe let me show to our viewers that you're actually the author of this book, Transformational HR. And you wrote this book 2 years ago, or it was published 2 years ago. I'm a very proud person to have my name mentioned in your book. Yeah. Thanks, Barry. And you wrote about a lot of things, and what I'm really curious about is, somehow we felt at the time when the book came out that it seemed maybe too futuristic, too optimistic. And suddenly I had this feeling that, wow, your book is more relevant than ever. So what is it that you would say people can find in your book that might be useful for them to utilize this superposition that HR got due to COVID and quarantine?
I think that's a very nice thing to say, that maybe its time is now, because I guess it was written with a future in mind, not necessarily the future we're in, mind you. I think at the time we were looking at things like automation and digitization, and we were looking at the growing sense of people wanting a purpose from their work, and that there were too many mechanistic systems in the workplace. Now, I think when we've seen the response to COVID-19, we have realized just how essential prescriptive guidance is to keep people safe. However, we have also seen just how much space we have needed to create for people to adapt and create their own systems of work. So we talked about flexibility in the book, and in it we encourage companies to go away from fixed hours of operating. And we thought it would be the case that it would slowly change, but COVID-19 completely threw that into the mix as a different option. And people have had to work in different ways, sprints, if you want, because they've had to homeschool, they've had to deal with, potential issues around their own health. And so we've seen a workplace that has been dispersed and that the techniques of work have had to change. Now, that's been done without HR having to write a policy. Now, in the past, HR would have written a policy and it would have taken ages to permeate through. We just adapted. Now, I guess in the book, there was something of that ilk, which is how we need to be responsive and how HR needs to stop thinking about a linear process of how it does its work and much more fluidity. And you and I know a good friend of ours, Elvira, who talks about the liquid organization. HR should become the guardians of the new form of organization, which is more liquid. Therefore, it can move more with the needs of, the world outside it and the consumers and the people who work there. So practically in the book, one of the things I urged HR to do, which I think is happening now anyway, is to decouple itself from its own individual silos of operating. Recruitment here, learning here, employee relationship. No, the employee doesn't care. The employee needs to know that at a point in time when they need HR support, they get it. And they get it in a way that makes sense to them. And we don't position it in those silos. We position it as a point of access that somebody could tackle that problem. And that comes with a sense of agility. And so I did talk very deliberately about HR having a structure that was allowing itself to move into a space to create something transformative. Because what I even meant by transformational HR is creating something different that will never be the same again. It will never go back. It will always be a new enterprising way of dealing with work and promotion and apprenticeships and leadership development, whatever it might be. So I think it's that fluidity that I put in the book that I urged HR to do, because I saw it in the most high performing companies in healthcare, technology, and I thought HR should be a replication of that system within an organization to encourage the rest of the organization to adopt that design. Now, again, you and I are affiliated with the European Organization Design Forum, and they talk about the essence of an organization, its spirit and its shape being an ecosystem. I wanted HR to do that for itself first and then help the organization move to that. That was the essence of the book.
And I really like that thought. And just right now, I started actually mentoring a head of HR in one company. And I took the book out again and flipped it through. And really what came to my mind and attention again is how you kind of reinforcing that HR itself should lead with example. And on the other hand, how not in a company, there's nobody who really looks after the complexity of things. So everybody is sort of responsible for their own silos, their own projects, and there is missing the function that glues together or uncovers the complexity of the organization. And that's one of the parts I really like, because I think that's a very different role for HR, to be the driver of the continuous transformation or evolution, how we call it, because there's nobody else to do that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's HR's opportunity to use a musical metaphor, to step away from being writing sheet music and conducting to being a jazz type impresario that reflects almost like the mood of what's around it and takes its essence from what's needed from the audience listening to that music. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there is something about HR's ability to penetrate every part of the organization, because every part has people, and to deal with it in not a mechanistic way, but in a very humane and soulful and almost spiritual way, to understand not just what do people do, but how do they feel? Because the way people feel about their work often channels itself into high performance. And we've been trying to get high performance and productivity through mechanized means forever. And I think those who really outperform have an essence that people really feel the work that they do. So you don't have to work in Médecins Sans Frontières to have a humane mission in your work. You can be a call center operative in a telecoms company, but love solving people's problems. And we want HR to create more of that in all areas of the organization. As you say, we have the ability to unravel complexity.
And that's one side of the coin, is that how we do things. But I think another really interesting part for me in your book was, how do you envision the new neo-generalist of HR or HR BPs? So I guess the Ulrich model everybody knows, and there's not a company that haven't used it or been around it for a while now. And what I really like in your book is how you are envisioning that an HR business partner is not just solely there to collect the wishes of the business leaders, take it as a postman or a postwoman to the center of excellences and get some solution to that and take it back. So this linear process, but instead of that, the role and the competencies are also much different. So what is it that you would highlight? Which competencies will be more important in this neo-generalist HR business partner?
I think there are two. I think the first one is the relationship build. And I think every business partner will know that. They will know that the strength of their relationship is key, because it needs to have that validity. But I don't think what we've understood is that that relationship is not a servant relationship. It is a partner. It is even a catalyst and an agitator. It's a relationship that needs to look at the business leader and go, are you really sure you want to bring in that oppressive guidance? Because let me tell you, the people will react like this, and here's my data that backs it up. So I think there is something about accountability and influence that comes from challenge. So the relationship needs to be strong in order to do that. The second bit is linking to that evidence side of things, and is being analytical, is being able to take intelligence that isn't always metrics or numerics or monetary, but evidence about people's spirit, motivation, the right conditions that create commitment, loyalty, innovation, and use those. So I talked about it as people intelligence. I think that's so crucial. And if an HR business partner can leverage both the relationship influence and then the intelligence that gets a result, then I think that's the secret recipe.
Yeah, I mean, if I could somehow wish something else, also from my HR experience or background, I also wish that, I mean, we talk a lot about sort of the coaching skills of HR business partners, which helps them to grow to an equal partner level with the business leaders. And another thing, and sorry, I'm going to talk about what I believe in, is that they organization development and design skills, or eyes. So to be able to challenge in a way that when you are faced with an issue, they are able to question whether that's just a sign of something, like a symptom, and what might be the underlying connections between different things, and to be able to handle that complexity and challenge the leaders from that.
I'd back that up 100%, because I think what you've talked about is the two dynamics at play. The people in the system, and the coaching is how you understand that more and give them agency, and then the system's impact on people. How you design and how you develop the system will change behaviors, change culture, as the culture will also influence the design. So those two are almost like an infinity loop that an HR business partner should be able to navigate around, and not simply think that's not their business and give it to an OD professional. It's like you can be as much in the diagnostic and the sensing and the design conversation as an OD professional could. And when you need to come together, then there's a much richer solution, I think, that's provided for a business leader based on problems, analytics, understanding, and that system interplay.
So Perry, if you could have just one last message to our viewers who are the HR people in Hungary and hopefully abroad as well, what would be your kind of one most important advice to them now that they are at the table, how to keep that position and how to move forward?
So I think I will sort of default into the agile principles that I've been working with HR teams and treat everything you have to offer as a product. It's a product that needs to be designed, tested, iterated, adapted, and consumed by people. Therefore, it isn't just guidance, advice, and a service, or having you take away management responsibility from somebody because you're better at it. Design a product that they can use, that gives them agency, that helps you then be more strategic. And I think you'll solve a lot of problems in the workplace and get you that influential coach and design position you're after.
Perry, thank you very much for this conversation. And as far as I heard, maybe an updated version of the book is also on its way.
2021, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll keep looking after that and looking forward to that. And thank you very much for this conversation. You heard Elvira Kalmár and Perry Things from the UK. Thank you very much.
Bye.